Every day, without even noticing, you may be committing a sin that is slowly hardening your heart. A sin so subtle, so silent, so easy that it slips into your actions, your words, even your thoughts, and you don't realize the damage until you feel spiritually empty, disconnected from Allah, and unable to taste the sweetness of faith. The most frightening part? You might think you're a good person. You might think you don't harm anyone. You might think your heart is clean. But this one sin can erase good deeds, destroy relationships, and close the doors of mercy, and most people don't even know they're doing it. Today, I want to show you the sin that attacks your heart quietly, daily, and dangerously, and how to escape it before it destroys everything inside you. Before I tell you the sin, I want you to pause and think about something. When was the last time you felt a heaviness in your chest, a sadness you couldn't explain, a sudden distance from Allah, even though you're still praying, still fasting, still trying? For many people, this spiritual heaviness doesn't come from major sins. It comes from the silent sins, the ones that feel too small to matter, the ones that slip into your daily life without guilt or awareness. And the most common one, the one that creeps into conversations, WhatsApp chats, TikTok comments, casual jokes, even harmless venting, is backbiting. But here's where the danger hides. Most people don't call it backbiting. They call it just talking. They call it, I'm only sharing my feelings. They call it, I'm just saying the truth. They call it, it's not that deep. Yet the Prophet ﷺ described backbiting as eating the flesh of your dead brother, a sin so horrifying that Allah used imagery designed to shock the heart awake. But why? Why would a sin that happens so casually, a sin that requires no effort, a sin that doesn't feel harmful, be so spiritually dangerous? Because every time you speak about someone behind their back, every time you enjoy a negative conversation, every time you spread something unnecessary about another person, you are not just harming them, you are damaging your own heart. Your spiritual sensitivity decreases, your purity fades, your connection with Allah weakens, your good deeds evaporate without you realizing. And the worst part? You might be doing it every day, with friends, siblings, co-workers, even online, while believing your heart is safe. But it isn't. Backbiting is not just a sin, it is a slow poison, a poison that eats the heart from the inside, silently. And once you understand why, you'll never speak the same way again. Let me show you how dangerous this sin truly is with something that happens every single day. Imagine this. You're sitting with a friend. You're both relaxed. And suddenly, someone's name comes up. Maybe it's a coworker, maybe a family member, maybe someone from your neighborhood or your online space. The friend rolls their eyes. You feel the urge to comment, and before you even think, the words slip out. She's always like that. Honestly, he's so annoying. I don't trust her. He thinks he's better than everyone. She's not even serious with her life. It takes 10 seconds to say. 10 seconds. But look at what happens spiritually in those 10 seconds. 1. Your heart darkens just a little. Not enough for you to notice, but enough for an angel to record it. 2. That darkness makes the next slip even easier. Your tongue gets used to it. The sin becomes normal. 3. Your prayers start feeling dry. You still pray, but the sweetness fades. Your heart is too busy feeding on the faults of others to taste the remembrance of Allah. 4. Shaitan whispers, "It's not a big deal," because he doesn't need you to commit major sins. He just needs your heart to rot slowly. And then, one day, you wake up
and wonder, why don't I feel anything in my salah? Why does my heart feel heavy? Why am I so quick to get angry? Why do I feel disconnected from Allah? This is the frightening truth. Backbiting doesn't destroy your heart instantly. It destroys it quietly. Just like termites in a house, you don't see the damage until the walls collapse. And to make it worse, many people commit this sin thinking they're venting, advising, or just joking. But the Prophet ﷺ said something terrifying. A person may say a word not thinking anything of it, but it causes him to sink deep into hellfire. One word, one sentence, one casual moment of speaking about someone behind their back. And this is why backbiting is one of the sins most believers underestimate, and one of the sins most responsible for destroying hearts. But here's the part most people don't know. There's something even more dangerous than backbiting, a level above it, a spiritual trap that can wipe out years of good deeds without you noticing. And that is where we go next. Most people know that backbiting is sinful, but there is something far more dangerous, something that reveals a diseased heart, something the scholars said is even darker than the sin itself. It's when your heart starts enjoying hearing or spreading someone's faults. This is no longer a slip of the tongue. This is a spiritual appetite, and that is frightening. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how certain conversations feel exciting? How exposing someone feels satisfying? How talking about another person's flaws feels lighter than talking about your own? That feeling, that rush, that subtle pleasure is not harmless. It is a sign that the heart has started to feed on something poisonous. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, "Backbiting is the feast of the corrupt heart." Why? Because corrupt hearts get hungry for faults, scandals, and mistakes, even tiny ones. The tongue becomes just a servant. The real sickness lives deep inside. This is why the Quran doesn't only condemn backbiting, it portrays the desire behind it as disgusting and unnatural. Would one of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother? You would hate it. Notice something powerful. Allah didn't ask, would one of you eat it? Allah asked, would you like to eat it? Meaning, the sin becomes deadly not just when you do it, but when you enjoy it. Let me tell you something painful but true. Some people don't backbite because they're evil. They backbite because their heart is starving for something: attention, validation, superiority, or emotional release. So they feed that hunger with other people's faults. And every time they do, the heart gets more used to it. It becomes comfortable in sin. It becomes numb to its own ugliness. It becomes blind to its own flaws. That is the moment when the sin becomes worse than backbiting. It becomes ghibah mixed with arrogance, pride, and self-righteousness.
A deadly combination. And this is where the real destruction begins. Because once a heart enjoys this sin, it starts craving it. It starts seeking it out. It starts creating it. What began as harmless talk becomes a habit. That becomes a lifestyle. That becomes a spiritual identity. But here's the part most people never realize. This sin doesn't just affect your heart, it affects your destiny. And the Prophet ﷺ warned us with a story so terrifying, so shocking, that it makes every believer pause and rethink every conversation they've ever had. That story is what we dive into next.
To truly understand how dangerous this sin is, you need to hear the story the Prophet ﷺ told, a story that makes the heart tremble. The Prophet ﷺ once said that on the day of judgment, a believer will come with mountains of good deeds. Not small acts, mountains. Prayers, fasts, charity, Quran, nights of worship, years of effort. Imagine the confidence of this person. Imagine standing before Allah with a lifetime of worship, thinking, I have made it. My place in Jannah is guaranteed. But then, people will begin to appear, one by one face after another. People he misled, hurt, or spoke about behind their backs. They will say, Ya Allah, he talked about me. He mocked me. He exposed my faults. He ruined my name. He took my honor with his tongue. And for each person who steps forward, Allah will take from his good deeds and give it to them. Piece by piece, prayer by prayer, fast by fast, charity by charity, until the mountains become hills, and the hills become piles, and the piles become almost nothing. And when he runs out of good deeds, but the claims against him are still not settled, Allah will take the sins of those people, their mistakes, their burdens, their wrongdoings, and place them on him. And then he will be thrown into Jahannam. Not because he didn't pray, not because he didn't fast, not because he wasn't religious, but because he destroyed others with his tongue and enjoyed it. This person is called al-muflis, the bankrupt one. Bankrupt, not in money, but in the currency of the akhirah. Let that sink in for a moment. A Muslim who prayed, fasted, gave charity, did good deeds, lost everything because of a sin that slips into daily life unnoticed. Backbiting feels small on the tongue, but heavy on the scales. So heavy, it can erase years of worship. And this raises a terrifying question. If every person we spoke about is going to stand in front of us on the day of judgment, how many people are we collecting, and how many good deeds are we losing without realizing? But here's the hopeful part. Allah never exposes a disease without revealing its cure. And the cure to this sin doesn't start with silencing the tongue. It starts much deeper, with healing the heart itself. In the next section, we uncover how to break this habit from the root. Not just stopping the sin, but transforming the heart so it no longer wants it. A lot of people think the solution to backbiting is simple. Just stop talking. Just control your tongue. Just keep quiet. But that's not how real change happens. Because the tongue is only a messenger. It speaks what the heart feels. If the heart enjoys exposing others, the tongue will always follow. If the heart feels superior, the tongue will always slip. If the heart is insecure, the tongue will always look for someone to blame. So the first step to stopping this sin isn't silencing your mouth. It's purifying your heart. Let's break it down. 1. The heart backbites when it feels empty. A heart connected to Allah doesn't crave gossip. It doesn't get energy from talking about others. It doesn't feel alive only when discussing someone else's flaws. When someone enjoys backbiting, it's a sign their heart is hungry, hungry for purpose, hungry for spiritual food, hungry for the remembrance of Allah. And a hungry heart grabs anything that feels satisfying, even poison. The cure? Fill your heart with dhikr, because the Prophet ﷺ said, in the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find rest. A heart that finds rest with Allah doesn't search for entertainment in the faults of others.
2. The heart backbites when it avoids its own flaws. Sometimes we talk about others because we don't want to face what's inside ourselves. It feels easier to highlight someone else's mistake than to admit our own. This is why the scholars said, the one who frequently criticizes others has a heart full of ignored problems. The cure? Daily muraqabah, checking your own soul. Ask yourself before you sleep, what did I say today? Whose heart did I hurt? What sin did I commit with my tongue? When you take yourself to account, you stop needing to account others. 3. The heart backbites when it wants acceptance. Many people fall into this sin because they want to fit in with a certain group. A friend starts talking, and you join. A family member vents, and you contribute. A chat becomes negative, and you add more. Because we fear being the boring one, the quiet one, the too religious one. But the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever seeks the pleasure of people at the cost of displeasing Allah, Allah will leave him to the people. Seeking acceptance through sin only brings humiliation in the end. The cure? Have courage. Know that true honor comes from Allah, not from entertaining people with someone else's dignity. 4. The heart backbites when it forgets Allah is listening. If people remembered that every word is recorded, every sentence is witnessed, every conversation is written, their tongues would tremble before speaking. But we forget. We talk freely. We joke freely. We comment freely. All while forgetting Allah said, not a word is uttered, except that it is recorded by a vigilant guardian. The cure? Before speaking, ask yourself, would I say this if the person were standing here? Would I say this if the angel of death was behind me? That moment of consciousness protects you from falling. 5. The heart heals when you speak good instead. The Prophet ﷺ gave the simplest formula: speak good or remain silent. This is not a restriction, it is a liberation. When you fill your conversations with dua for others, encouragement, reminders, gratitude, kind words, silence that protects your soul, your heart begins to taste peace again. And once you taste that peace, you will never want to go back to the bitterness of gossip. But even with all this, there is one final step, a step many people ignore, and without it, the heart never fully heals. Next, you will learn the most powerful way to undo the damage of backbiting. Even after you stop backbiting, even after you purify your heart, even after you hold your tongue, there is something heavy still left behind: the harm you caused to others. Because backbiting isn't just a sin between you and Allah. It's a sin between you and another human being. And Allah does not forgive what belongs to someone else until they forgive you. And here is where many people panic. What if they never find out? What if I can't tell them? What if we're not close? What if it causes problems? But listen carefully. The scholars made something very clear. If telling the person will cause more harm, more anger, or more damage, you should not go to them. Instead, you take a different path, a path that is quiet, a path that is sincere, a path that cleans your heart without destroying relationships. And that path is: 1. Make dua for the person you backbited. Not once, not casually, consistently. Ask Allah to bless them, elevate them, guide them, protect them, give them more than you have. When you sincerely pray for someone, your heart repairs what your tongue has broken. 2. Mention them with good in the same gathering where you mentioned them with bad. If you sat with friends and spoke negatively, then the next time, say something good about that person. Silently, softly, without explaining why. Replace the darkness you spread with light.
3. Ask Allah to erase the sin every single day. The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah forgives sins even if they reach the clouds of the sky for the one who keeps returning to Him. Backbiting is heavy, but Allah's mercy is heavier. 4. Protect the one you harmed from being harmed again. If someone speaks badly about the person you once hurt, defend them quietly. Redirect the conversation. Change the subject. Say something kind. This is how you repay the debt of honor. 5. Build a new habit that destroys the old sin. Every time you feel tempted to backbite, stop. Breathe. Say something good about someone, anyone, or say nothing at all. Every time you resist, your heart becomes stronger, your tongue becomes purer, your soul becomes lighter. This is how Allah transforms you, word by word, choice by choice, moment by moment. And here's a truth that brings so much peace. Allah does not hold you to your past. He holds you to your effort. If you walk toward Him, He runs toward you. If you clean your heart, He fills it with nur. If you protect the honor of others, He protects your honor in this world and the next. But this journey isn't just about avoiding a sin. It's about becoming someone whose presence brings safety, someone whose tongue is trustworthy, whose heart is beautiful, and whose character reflects the Prophet ﷺ. Take a moment and reflect. How many conversations did you leave today that could have been full of gossip, judgment, or hidden cruelty? How many times did your tongue slip without realizing, or your heart secretly enjoyed someone else's flaw? The truth is, this sin is not just a fleeting mistake. It is a thief, stealing your peace, your good deeds, your closeness to Allah, and even your happiness. But here is the hope that every believer must cling to. No sin is too small to cause harm, and no effort is too little to repair it. If you start today, if you commit to guarding your tongue, if you purify your heart, and if you sincerely pray for those you may have wronged, you will feel a lightness you have never known. You will taste sweetness in your prayers. You will restore the dignity of your soul and protect the dignity of others. Remember, the Prophet ﷺ taught us that the best of people are those who leave others safe from their tongue and hands. So make this your goal: to speak good, to think pure, to act with care, and to protect hearts, both yours and others. And when you do, you will discover something beautiful: a soul that finds peace, a life filled with mercy, and a closeness to Allah
that no sin can take away. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, have I harmed anyone with my words today? Have I glorified Allah in my heart more than I glorified the faults of others? Can I make dua for someone I may have wronged? Do this consistently. Do this sincerely, and watch your heart transform. Because protecting your tongue isn't just about obeying Allah. It's about protecting your own heart before it's too late.